Well, I'd say it's 5 o'clock, so I'd like to call the January 10th Water and Sewer District meeting to order. Let's begin with,
I'll make a motion, we
Yes.
approve the minutes from the December 13th, 2022 meeting.
I'd second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Payroll and manifest, we've got
Make
several.
a motion, we accept the payroll and manifests as presented.
I'd second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 New business, anything? Are we all in the past tonight? Old business?
Yeah, let's go through, I don't see new business. Oh, yeah, no, I don't think we have anything new.
Okay.
Nothing new that you don't know, you guys don't know about. I mean,
Okay.
Frontenac thing. I
Fair
just
enough.
think, Everything's old.
Well, then on to old, reviewing the 2023 proposed budget, which we have in front of us.
So what percent are we up by?
So water is 2% and the sewer is 7%.
Is that what that go to is?
That's what
You
that
all saw the PO that,
is. For the chemicals.
there's another adjustment resulting from the projected cost of chemical increases.
And that's,
That
In-
is
In the
now,
sewer, yeah.
that has now been incorporated into
Okay.
this budget.
but dollar-wise, that was a big one. I mean,
It is about a 50% increase.
yeah, well,
Yeah, it was
tell me
like-
in dollars, Jason.
Probably don't wanna know.
Increase it by 40,000.
Yeah.
Seemed like it was.
Right, an increase of 40,000
Budget was
over from November's cost estimate.
Yeah.
But now they're locked in for some of them for 3 months, some of them for 6 months, some of them for the year.
Yeah, well, I know that's why you wanted to get everything in right now before it goes up even more.
And we've also experienced some supply shortages. I know one of our chemicals, Foster Street, we've asked for a delivery coming up within the next week or so of that, and they're telling us it may be 4 weeks out.
Oh.
So we're gonna have to be a little bit more proactive so that
Right.
if there are delays, we know and we don't run out.
Yep.
Yeah, we have it on one hand.
But the manufacturer, the supplier has it, it's just not at their New Hampshire location, they have to bring it in freight from another location. So, it's not like they don't have it at all, which is a good thing.
There were some slight adjustments in debt service from the ones you reviewed in November. One was that we were a little shy on interest for this past year, so we had to up that.
Okay.
One of the water Woodsville account has dropped off, so actually the principal went down, so there's just some slight changes there.
So isn't that a good thing?
Yes, very good.
Right, the principal going away
Yeah,
and that's
Heidi
up.
got, she got amortization schedules from each and every one of the lenders, so we have a good handle on what to expect.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. So I think we have some pretty solid numbers in there.
There isn't any surprises in here other than the chemicals.
It's the only one we really had to adjust since the last iteration.
So if you're comfortable with what you see in front of you, then just a motion to move it to public hearing.
Okay. I make a motion, we move the budget information to public hearing.
I'd second that.
Which is scheduled for January
On the
24th.
24th.
2 weeks.
Right,
Yep.
for January 24th. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yep. And we're trying to keep it as low as we can keep it without
It's reasonable.
starving ourselves. So, okey-dokey.
Yeah, I know.
The warrant, a series of warrant articles that have been vetted by our attorney at
Good.
this point. So they'll require some explanation at the meeting because there's a couple of them that are confusing. Probably the most confusing is the one we're borrowing $1.2 million, but the principal is going to be forgiven.
That's Article 3.
Yes, and so, it's just the way DES is
Right, because we
administering
have to do it.
the pennies from heaven. And then the other one that's not terribly confusing, but the one related to the Main Street Phase 1, the additional $577,000, which was previously approved, but we borrowed the money, that was for Foster Street, so we borrowed
So
the
we're
money.
reallocating it.
Yeah,
We're getting an additional
so,
authorization from the voters.
so
Right.
the money.
That we've already borrowed it, but we want to say that it needs to be used for this rather than that.
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
We borrowed it and used it for Foster, we had a loan guarantee from rural development for 2.1 something. And before I arrived, you went ahead and did Foster Street, but you borrowed the money from a local,
Westfield.
from a bank, which took the 577 out of the
Okay.
borrowing authorization. So it didn't change the agreement with rural development, but you don't have the authority to borrow the 577 from rural development. So we got the commitment. Now all we're doing is asking for authorization
To just
to borrow
actually
that
borrow
money
it this
as well,
way. rather
which
than
is confusing,
the
but
bank.
and everything else is pretty straightforward. Or as straightforward as federal money can be.
Yeah. That's good to me. Nothing strange.
So John, you want to explain where the record retention and those policies
Oh.
kind of originated
Yeah, it
from?
rolls on to the administration.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you want to approve the draft warrant?
Oh, I
yeah,
make a
move it to
motion,
public
we
hearing.
approve the draft warrant as submitted.
For the seven articles.
I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And so, under administrative items, that the retention procedure and the translation procedure are requirements of DES, or of the funding through DES. So they sent a questionnaire indicating, asking if we had a procedure or a policy. The retention is record retention. There are federal guidelines and there's a state statute, which is.
We gotta do this in Roman numerals, that's,
Which we referenced.
That's something.
I went through the state statute and cut out everything that's irrelevant, because it applies to all municipalities. And then the translation piece, I don't know that I've certainly never encountered it, but apparently there is some requirement that you have a provision that provides translation services for someone who doesn't speak English who needs to transact business with you. So I drafted, essentially said it's our practice
That's where these come in handy.
to provide. But in any event, I went online and I got a list. There are 3 companies in New Hampshire that provide translation services.
Yes.
And I said if we ever, the likelihood that we'll ever need them is almost non-existent, but.
Good to know.
We have to,
And then, and I just indicated that it's the business manager's responsibility if it seems reasonable for us to pay some or all of the bill for translation service for somebody to do business with us. And then the last is the org chart. Did we send the PDF?
Yes.
this,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the same basic one, right?
Yeah, it's a little funky.
Yeah.
One is, the one we sent you, the PDF demonstrates my phenomenal technology skills. Because I thought I was just taking a screenshot of the first page, and I wound up taking a screenshot of the template that I found online. So but the long and the short of it is that because of the funky way New Hampshire operates, you operate under a municipal statute. So you have the same power, according to statute, you have the same power and authority of selectmen as it relates to the prudential affairs of the district. And so, and New Hampshire's statutes are as clear as mud when it comes to responsibility and authority. I mean, it talks about prudential affairs. And if you talk to Christine, that can be everything or it can be very little. But then beyond that, we have an elected treasurer, an elected clerk, trustees of trust funds, and supervisors of the checklist, all of whom there's no accountability, but there's interdependence. So we have interdependence, you all have interdependence on the treasurer to do certain things, but you have no control over whoever the treasurer is, and vice versa. So the lines that are not complete, they're either broken or there's a two-way arrow as opposed to a solid line. Solid line depicts control and authority, responsibility. The broken line it's an interdependence. And so, the DES required a copy of the org chart, and our old org chart was adequate, but Jason had a more current one that he's used to report to DES, so we ultimately used that. But where I hope to get to, as we're putting this transition plan together, is an org chart that shows the way it's intended to, or it has to be in order to deal with the statutory incongruities, just so that it is clear that, you've got a treasurer who is responsible for the cash, but Kim, as the business manager, is responsible to make the deposits, get information to him, and then because of separation of duties, there has to be reconciliation. So we've got Heidi doing the reconciliation with the treasurer. But Kim can't tell the treasurer what to do, and the treasurer can't tell Kim what to do, and Heidi can't tell the treasurer what to do, and vice versa. And then you've got the clerk, who is officially by statute the same as the town clerk, so she's official keeper of all the records. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure, other than at the annual meeting I've ever met her. And
Yeah,
Kim keeps the records. So we can't delegate that authority to her because the statute gives it to the clerk.
Right.
So there is, again, this two-way interdependence, but no authority. The clerk can't tell her, do it this way, and she can't tell the clerk, this is the way. So it's kind of life in New Hampshire. And so my thought is, as we're kind of building this transition plan, having a template that shows the way it has to be is helpful down the road. So that's why you have this confusing, and I took great pride in the fact that in one sheet of paper, with less than 25 words, in less than 25 lines, I confused Jason. So that was my accomplishment for the new year.
Right off the bat, right?
Yeah, right out of the gate. So that's the story on those three things.
Now,
all I'm
why
looking
the
for is
different pages?
concurrence. What?
Why
We
the
only had
different
this and
pages?
this. We were confused too.
I was just
Why?
working from a template.
Oh, you were just playing,
Yeah, and I
okay.
was just trying to. The last one is where I found the template. The next one is where I started, and the last one is where I finished.
Right.
But I thought that I was only taking a picture of the
First page,
yeah. So
So the short
So you can
answer
see
is,
all.
this is a work in
So-
progress.
yeah. well,
Jens Martinson
Okay.
is.
I'm a
is
work in
the
progress.
accountant
Yeah, well,
project and the project
as I look at it,
And
obviously
Alexander
there'd be
is
some
two
missing
different people.
pieces that we haven't got into yet,
That's right.
so,
It's a little
okay.
crazy.
I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, it's mostly looking for concurrence because we have to, we're
Right.
sending a packet back to answer the questionnaire that I'm almost positive no one will review.
Right.
We're going to-
But
Okay.
it's
It just goes in the
Checks the
file.
you
boxes.
know.
Yeah,
They sent
Did
it.
you answer the questionnaire? Yes. Did they
Yes.
send you the questionnaire? Yes.
Right. Did you get the documents? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a DES compliance piece that they're
Yeah.
just forwarding to the
Yeah.
systems.
So
Yeah.
we're all agreeing that the federal funds that are flowing to agencies that have answered the questionnaire.
yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Answer all the questionnaires you need to.
Yep.
Thank you, government.
That's 2 in a row. You have
Oh,
no idea how
my.
stressful that
Well, we need a little levity here.
Yeah.
Business manager, spotlight on you. For 4 items here. Fourth quarter financial snapshot.
That's in front of you.
Yes.
Just comparing the both quarters
Yep.
for 21 and 22. I think we're in pretty good shape. We covered our budget and we gained a little bit.
This is what we wanted. And fourth quarter bills are out, but probably not all of them paid.
No, not due till January
May
31st, but
1st.
we're
Yes,
we're
that's,
starting to
that's the
trickle in.
revenue, that's the Q1
Right.
revenue.
Right.
Yep.
But the nice thing to note is that total billings are up.
Right.
So we continue, they're not horrifically up, but they're up. They're headed, they continue to move north as opposed to south.
Yep.
Are we gonna have a talk about rates and so on at some point?
Yeah, we have engaged David Fox from Reftelis, and he sent a request for,
Bazillions of reports.
Yeah.
all of which he's received now, so he's busy and locked in a room analyzing.
Okay.
Good for him.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
concern obviously is we don't wanna get like we were before.
Yep,
Yeah, let's.
Right. Well, I'm sure they've promised to diligently move forward on
yeah,
that.
we're
Fairly,
Yeah,
wasn't all that many
April,
meetings.
yeah, March or April.
Yeah.
is but I'm expecting we'll have some preliminary conversations once he's had a chance to kind of homogenize all of that information and make an initial assessment.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, that's, well,
So I just wanted to note that on the capital reserve accounts for the end of the year, I've updated them so that all of the items that you voted to encumber, all the closeouts that we're gonna do in the future with those capital reserve accounts
Mhm.
have been listed here so that they'll be tracked as we go forward.
Good,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then my last thing is that we're working on preparing the treasurer's report. Once Heidi can get the December bank statement reconciled, and she and Bob and Christian is actually gonna come in and give us a little bit more lesson on bank reconciliations, because she's stuck a little bit on December, so we don't know if it's a MTS thing that we're just not all that familiar with or what, but we're almost there.
good.
And then I'm
So
gonna
we're
remind.
happy with the progress on that then?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
the,
good.
the MTS part is going really good.
Good.
And we just seem to have one little glitch that we don't know with the checking. It might be in the split of the water sewer. So Christian's gonna come in and just walk us through it one more time to see if he can figure out where we might be struggling.
Good.
Gotcha.
And then a reminder that reports are due for annual meeting, for
Yes.
the annual report by
That
the
actually
end
did
of.
cross my brain the other day.
It did,
So
yeah.
the fact that it registered is
So
kind
just
of a
give
miracle.
us a couple more weeks.
Yeah, with everything going on, it is
Yeah.
a miracle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep. That is it for me.
okay. Yes. Superintendent,
Just want to report tonight that we have submitted our comments on Wright Pierce's RFPs for the pump station 1 and septic issues. So those comments are back in their court now to be able to firm up the request for proposals for the corrective action for those. So we're waiting to hear back from Wright Pierce on that. We have hit the, we have also sent back 90% review comments to Wright Pierce on the well project. So we'll be meeting with them on Friday morning to review those comments and hopefully get wrapped up, ready to go to 95 to 100% on that. So we're getting close. There's a few items that we need to review with them that we may have some discrepancies on based on what we're looking to do or build a constructability versus what they're proposing for us. So we're hopefully gonna hash through some of that stuff on Friday. We have received a letter from Grenice extending the
Right.
award period to February 3rd, while we work through reviewing the construction administration contract. So we're presently, Don provided comments on that, and we're working with Christine to button up some of those comments in order to make sure that we have a solid contract with Ray Pierce.
So is that extension our doing or Grenice's doing?
Ours.
We requested
Ours,
it.
We
yeah,
requested.
yeah, okay, that's what I thought,
Yeah, well, we'll be back. We're this week and kind of in the middle of the discussions with Ray Pierce on, are there places to save money in this contract?
Right.
In the contract, and kind of an accountability check, based upon comments from the auditor. We've informed them that we tend to be more assertive and more involved in managing the week-to-week activity, and we're building in. It's tough because they're working from an architects and engineers contract. It was 80-some pages, and trying to understand it. I sent comments off to them. They sent answers back in the form of modifications to the contract. And, it's kind of like understanding the Bible. It's, you're going back and forth between Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 5 and the body of the contract. So we met with Christine, who suggested that we prepare our own exhibit, which articulates specific things that we want. We want the construction inspector to report in and out on a daily basis. We want a weekly look-back report that we can share with the commissioners so we know what's going on. We want a Gantt chart or a timeline that compares the engineering support services to the construction process, so that on a monthly basis, so that we have some understanding that the flow of the work and the flow of the engineering necessary to support the work are more or less on the same time frame, in a series of kind of those kinds of things. And then we've asked for, we've asked to explore using Jason and Gary for some of the construction
Oversight.
Inspection
Yes.
stuff. And I'm not sure where that's going to go. We've encountered a little bit of resistance there.
At the engineering level or at the fund, based on lenders?
At the engineering level, and I've run into some skepticism at rural development.
Yes.
But I was on the phone today actually with Wright Pierce about their concern about liability issues, and then I called our insurance provider Primex and explained the situation to them, and they suggested that we should feel comfortable with the coverage we have with them. So
Good.
we're working along. I'm hoping that by the 24th, we'll be ready to recommend a contract with Wright Pierce.
No, these sound like constructive exercises.
It is.
It never seems right to me to have somebody pitch a contract at you and say, here are the terms, of their drafting.
Right,
When-
without
which-
feedback
With
from
it, right,
our
right.
drafting.
Right, why shouldn't we have some input, especially given the complexity of the
Yeah. So in any event, if we're not able to, at some point it's your decision, not mine. But if we can't get to a point where I'm comfortable or we're comfortable making a recommendation, we may simply invite them into the table and say, okay, you explain why
Right.
these things are the way they are.
Right.
I have one question. You talked about Jason's inspecting this stuff?
Doing construction
Yeah,
supervision.
is he gonna have time to do this? That's my question.
I've asked him to look at it. He wouldn't be the primary inspector,
Okay,
but the challenge is it's almost $500,000 worth of inspection fees. And the projects are over by more than $500,000. So we've got this window, and that's
Like
before
the
we get to the ARPA grant projects. So there's a lot of what do we do? And, can we reduce it, and and how much can we reduce it, or how much can we contain it or control it? So, again, I talked to Tim this afternoon, Tim Tim Vadney, who is the principal in charge at Wright Pierce, and says, look, we've got to find ways to compress the cost. And so we've agreed, we have a project team meeting tomorrow morning. We're going to go through the numbers on every project in the pipeline and agree that that's what the numbers are, including, they're mostly engineering estimates except for the Grenice contract. And then kind of forecast, all right, where's it going to come in terms of the available dollars? And then engage kind of in a, how do we contain cost? What can we reduce? And I'm not convinced, well, I am convinced probably that we're going to have to give serious consideration to maybe eliminating one or two of the ARPA projects. I haven't gotten a definitive answer from DES yet, and I'm going to continue to try and get the answer. One of the problems is with the ARPA grants, the first dollars in, the first drawdown is ARPA dollars because the state has to spend the ARPA dollars first.
Mhm.
And so, but I've not been able to get an answer to what happens if we draw down the dollars, pay for the engineering, and then go to bid and find out that the bid is more than we have the dollars to do.
Yes.
And no one yet has been able to answer the question, will the state demand the money back? So if we do the engineering,
That would be horrible.
draw down the money, and then
Don't do the project.
don't do the project, do,
Are we on the hook for
Are
that?
we on
the
the hook
like,
for that
like
money?
claw back
We have
the
to pay
money.
it back, yeah.
And that adds an interesting element to the decision
Yeah,
making
it's just a
process.
small.
Yeah, real interesting.
So,
An interesting
so,
choice of adjectives.
we've been saying for the better part of a year that we're kind of bumping up against how much is too much in
Right.
terms of the long-term debt. And so again, a big part of the question for some of this is what is it, the town meeting vote for the additional money to finish South Main Street.
Right.
As you heard last meeting, that project for us is shy $500,000, which is the borrowing that we're asking for from rural development.
Right.
But we also heard from Mike that if the town doesn't do their piece of it, our costs are gonna be more than $1 million more than what we'll have if we go with the town. So, and all the while the clock is ticking on these various projects. So, it is what it is. I mean, there are worse problems than having offers for more money than maybe we should take, but it's a little disconcerting without answers to obvious questions like, if we spend the money and we don't do the project, do we get to keep the money?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be repaid?
That's definitely a major concern.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, Grenice has expressed that they're planning to work with one crew initially
Mhm.
and then possibly expanding to a second crew. So the RPR would be able to cover at least that one crew. Once they do determine whether they're gonna expand or not, then we can reassess, both Gary and myself overseeing the second crew.
Mhm.
My biggest concern is I don't wanna put
Yep.
more on his plate than he can handle. That's number one. And
Oh, look how young.
would
he
there
is.
would there be any kind of a conflict if it came to a situation on making these decisions?
Our insurance company, the way I presented it to the insurance company is, look, they're out there doing this anyway. I mean, when Walmart does an extension, when a developer develops and runs
Right.
water and
Right.
sewer,
No, I understand.
they're out there doing this. So I'm not sure I see the difference. The engineers are arguing that there's a difference and there's a liability issue, which is what led me to call Primex and say, tell me, if
What the
what you see as a
liability is.
liability issue. And so, and they've offered at no cost to review whatever terms we put in the construction contract and/or the engineering contract to tell us if there is any exposure.
Okay.
However, it's, to a large extent, it's gonna be dependent upon Wright Pierce agreeing and rural development and DES agreeing. But if Wright Pierce doesn't agree, I don't think there's any chance rural development or DES is
Right.
gonna agree. So it's kind of this chicken or egg situation, but that will be resolved one way or another before the 24th.
Okay,
Any discrepancy resolution or decisions would be through the engineer
Yeah.
anyway.
okay.
Yeah.
So that, their fees, there's two parts of the fees. They have the construction services piece,
Right,
which is about 300 grand. And a construction administrator, resident inspector piece, which is 220. So
Which
it's,
is
I'm
where it
I'm
fell
finished.
short this past time,
Hmm?
which is where we fell short.
Yes,
yes, that's what I was, that's my
Right.
concern.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so, regardless of how involved we are with the actual provision of the inspection services, we're going to require check-in as part of the contract.
Right.
Check in and check out daily, so we have an amount of time. We're still waiting for an answer. When I talked with Tim Vadney, I understood him to say that we had to pay for the construction inspector whether he was on site or not, which is unacceptable from my perspective, because
like,
it's,
wait a
Agreed.
they're
second.
buying it for an hourly basis.
Right.
But if we say that's not acceptable, they may well say then we can't provide somebody, so that there's these complications that,
Right.
get, and, again, the delaying of the bid messed everything up in terms of time-wise, because now we're trying to deal in several weeks what could have been dealt with in a couple of months.
Not trying to complicate it, just want to be sure that.
No, you're right, and we need answers to those questions before, so we don't get into the situation we were in the last go-around.
Right, okay, thank you.
Well, if that's, Jason, anything else?
Oh, that would be it.
Okay.
Wow,
Did you
So-
break anything this week? Oh, it's only mine.
Well, yeah, thank
Oh,
you
well,
for
the water
fixing
main
the
break.
water main
Main,
in
yes,
short
good-
order. That
Good
was,
job.
glad to hear that was resolved easily for once.
no snow, pretty warm weather,
Much easier to deal with when it's out of the roadway.
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Who reported it?
We found it.
Oh, you found it.
Yeah, we noticed a high reading at Foster Street
Okay,
over the weekend.
okay, so it was like, okay, let's go hunt.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Make a motion, we accept the purchase recs
Okay.
approved via email and enter them into the record.
I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then, Mary Ann, public comment. Any questions tonight?
So my first observation is the org chart is clear as mud. You lost me, but I think I wasn't alone in that, so that's good. The Article 3, could you explain about the 1.2 million and where it's coming from? And
Yes, the 1.2 million is coming from DES.
okay,
It is federal dollars. And for some reason that is not crystal clear to us and wasn't clear to the people we talked to at DES, it has to come in the form of a loan, not a grant. But the loan, they forgive the principal of the loan. So essentially, we're going to draw down the loan during construction. And we have to pay interest on the amount of money that we use during construction. But as soon as we close the loan, the principal, 100% of the principal is forgiven.
so we just pay the interest.
We only pay
Only
the
during
interest on the money we
construction.
use
Right.
Okay,
during construction. So and I can't remember, was it 2.5?
It's 1%.
Well,
It's 1%.
So 1%
1%
interest
interest.
on the money that we use during the construction period.
Right.
okay.
So
Pretty
they were not, the question I asked was, what's the difference between a loan where where there's no principal and a grant. And they said that there is no difference, except that's the way we have to do it because that's how the federal dollars are coming.
Because this takes more paperwork this way.
Say again?
Right. Yet they cut the iron.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Oh, no, just another clear as mud.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry, but that's not our doing. The confusion in the org chart is in large part my technical, or my lack of technical skills.
I just heard a lot of, who doesn't have, power, for lack of a better
Oh.
word, over who and.
Oh, well, you should appreciate that as a select person, is that you're responsible for everything, but you have the authority to deal with very little.
Exactly.
There you go.
If we can only get that out to the community,
Yeah.
when
Yep.
they yell at it.
We have the same, the commissioners have the same statutory responsibility as you guys, as selectmen. And so they're responsible for the prudential affairs of the district, but there's no definition of prudential affairs.
You wanna muddy that up. Alright, that's all I had, thank you.
Okey-doke,
Well,
good night.
well, with that in mind, the next meeting is scheduled for January 24th. That'll be our budget and borrowing hearings, which will start at 5 p.m.
Okay,
And that's all for this evening. Yes.
yes. Motion adjourned.
All set.
Signing off from
Nice and quick.
La La Land. Good night, Mary Ann.
Good night all.
Good night.
Is the warrant on the website?
Not yet, because you're only in draft.
Oh, we don't put
Can't
that
wait
in
until
draft?
it,
We
we
don't-
can't wait.
I mean, we
can't
can-
do it until, right?
We
Well,
can
budget
post a
hearing?
draft now.
Yeah, I suppose.
You can
Yeah.
post a draft,
I could post a draft now.
but why? I
Yeah.
don't think we've ever done it,
Okay.
have we?
Yeah.
No, we usually post it once the
When it's
hearing's
Once it's
approved,
approved,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.